Episode number 294, First In, Last Out, with Todd Elliott, Part 2. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Well, hey guys, thanks for checking out the podcast this week. I'm still battling a little bit of a cold, so please forgive my voice again this week. I promise it is not the COVID. If you missed last week's episode of the show, we started a two-part series with the founder of FILO, Todd Elliott, and I give you full permission to stop this episode right now and go back and listen to part 1 of my conversation with Todd to catch up. That is episode number 293 of the podcast. We started a great discussion all about church tech arts, and Todd and I both served at large churches in the United States. We both come from a small church background as well, so we both have that in common on how to make things work for Sunday, no matter what size church you're in. And Todd has a similar passion to reach people for Jesus and to use tech arts to do just that, be an art form to share the gospel. If you have never been to FILO, I'd love to encourage you to check it out. It's May 11th and 12th in Chicago. It's a hybrid experience this year, a digital event with a live audience. I'm hosting the creativity and communications track of breakouts, so you'll be seeing my face on the stream, and I will be in Chicago live. So if you are there, please come by our booth and say, hey, Steve Dirks from our team and myself will be there hanging out. We would love to meet you. And if you're on the stream too, if you're online, I would love to jump in to a Zoom with you or a chat channel with you and get to know you a little bit more. So FILO coming up May 11th and 12th. All right, part 2 of my chat with Todd Elliott is on the way after we hit the mailbag. I'm continuing to hit questions about ready-made worship media and how to use media at your church more effectively. This week, I'm going to hit on motion backgrounds. Okay, so here are a few quick tips. Number 1, keep them simple and readable with your lyrics. So stay with warm colors such as blues and reds or darker colors so that your white lyric text pops and is easily readable. Remember, the name of the game here is that people worship corporately. So don't be cool just to be cool. Make sure that your backgrounds work and with your font, with your text, with your colors to make it readable. Number 2, lights and environment. Be mindful that certain colors may not work in your space. Bright yellows may hit the light weird in your room. And again, remember the idea is to make sure that the congregation can read the lyrics on screen and can worship. So again, don't be cool just to be cool. If it's not functional, we've missed the mark. Okay? Number 3, transitions. I'm going to suggest that you stick to simple dissolves of your backgrounds. Now, you can hard cut lyrics, and this is definitely a trend to hard cut lyrics and not do any dissolves the entire service, no matter the tempo of the song. I kind of lean that direction, to be honest, to do hard cuts on lyrics. But you cannot do hard cuts on your backgrounds. And the library of transition effects in your presentation software, unless used very strategically at VBS, don't be using the star wipe, okay? They're completely almost useless, okay? Unless it is very, very strategic, you know what you're doing, it's for VBS and you're having fun, something like that. But a normal Sunday environment, your transition effects, don't be doing star wipes and Star Wars, wipes on a Sunday morning. It just does not look good, okay? Stay with very simple, non-distracting background transitions like a cross dissolve. All right, so those are just some quick tips when it comes to using motion backgrounds on screen at your church. Now, in our ready-made media library, we have at 1230, we have separated all of our motions into worship backgrounds, which have no text on them, so that you can place your own text for lyrics and sermon points, things like that. And then title motions that have pre-built titles already on them for you to use. 1230.media is the place to go for that. Just click on the ready-made tab and click motion backgrounds and check out our library there for you if you needed help with those. 1230.media and then click on the ready-made tab. All right, part 2 of my conversation with the founder of FILO, Todd Elliott, is coming up right after this.
Hi, FILO folks. I'm Dr. J, and I work with all kinds of leaders and teams, and there's always somebody like you out there helping me look good. It's your contributions that are helping me sound good, look good, come across well, basically helping me make a big impact on the people that I serve. So I'm really psyched to be with you in Chicago this year at the FILO conference because I get to flip the script and give back to you. I get to contribute to what you do. Not so much the technical aspects of your role, but I get to give you some tips and some tactics that'll help you deal with the organization you're in, that'll help you work with volunteers, help you fire up your people and do extraordinary things for Christ and His kingdom. So I'm looking forward to seeing you. Join us in Chicago this year for FILO. We'll have a great time together.
Let's talk about purchasing gear in small steps. That's one piece, but also I think it goes to a bigger conversation of no matter what size church you're in, you're always going to have budget limitations.
Right.
You're always going to have, things that you wish you could buy, but you can't, or whatever the case may be. And you're coming from Willow. I've served at 2 mega churches, New Spring most recently, and people think, oh, New Spring, you got all the money. Or Willow, man, you guys get to spend on all the fun toys. Yeah. When the guys actually, they are doing it, it's interesting how I've found that they're pinching pennies, or they are trying to figure out ways to do things with the things that they have.
Right.
Just as much as the 50-member church is. Yes.
Sure.
Anyway, talk through that for me. What's your opinion on
that? I mean, I think the thing when you compare your own budget at whatever size church you are to a mega church's budget, there is no comparison if you're just looking at the size of the budget. I mean, yes, maybe Willow Creek has more money to spend on production than you do, but the challenge is scale. At a 50-person church, maybe 2 par cans, 2 LED pars would revolutionize your lighting look. Well, on Willow Creek's main stage, they need 10 times that number. They need 20 LED par cans to do the same thing. Right. And so, well, that's more zeros. And so, it's just, I think scale is the big challenge that, I just, at Willow, I need more of everything than the smaller church. And so that costs a lot of money. And churches are hesitant to spend a lot of money on production stuff. It doesn't necessarily bring more people in, or it doesn't necessarily, help present the gospel message better. It's a nuanced thing. And so, I think it was really easy for me in my earlier days. I would come to Willow Creek to conferences in the 90s and just be depressed at the end of the conference because, they've got all the money. There's no way I would ever be able to do this where I am. So, but somewhere along the way, I decided, okay, when I get home, the only thing that's going to change is I've learned something. So how can I apply that to what I have in front of me? Instead of just saying, well, I'm never going to have that, so why even try? And so, it just led me to say, okay, I'm going to take what I have. I'm going to wring every last ounce of usefulness out of it. Right. And
did you do the same thing at Willow? Like, speak to that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So here's a great example. So from a lighting standpoint, and if anybody's listening as a lighting person, they have the Grand MA lighting console at Willow Creek. So back in 2003 or 4, when we moved into the current auditorium, that was cutting edge, super expensive. And, it just felt like, to some, probably an extravagance. Well, guess what? They're still using it. It's still the same lighting console. And what is it? almost 20 years later, it's still working. So they're until it starts failing on a regular basis, they're just going to keep using it. And would it be nice to have the Grand MA3? Yes, completely. But until the thing stops working, let's just keep using it because we're getting ministry value out of it. Right. So I think, and if you watch a Willow Creek web stream today, there are lighting fixtures in there that were bought 15 years ago, used, but they're still working. And so, let's keep using them. The PA, it was the original one installed in 2004. So if the stuff is still working, or if we can keep it working, let's do it. I think the secret is to keep your leadership informed. Yeah. If things are starting to get to a place where this might fail at any moment, this is what it would look like. We're going to try and keep making it work, but we just want you to know, right? This is where we are. Here's a great example. So they have 2 LED screens in the main auditorium at Willow. They were installed in 2003. They were very expensive. They were custom made. They are now out of spare parts, so they can't get any more parts for them. So they've been updating the leadership. Hey, this is where we are. This is what's happening. We can limp along, and we think we can get some more life out of it this way and that way, but we just want you to know what's happening. And so, they're wringing every last second out of those. And maybe someday the whole thing, stops working, but at least the leadership knows that's a possibility, and they're shouldering the risk. Right. The leadership is not just the tech person. Yeah. Cause I think a lot of times, let's keep this working. Let's duct tape, more duct tape on this thing, more gaff tape, keep it working. But I think a lot of times I just sort of keep that to myself instead of letting the leadership know, hey, come look at the back of this rack. You see all this duct tape, gaff tape, and, like jumper cables and all this stuff. This is what we're up against. It's working, but we want you to know that at a certain point, this isn't going to work anymore. Right. And we need to start thinking ahead.
And budgeting for that. Yeah,
but I think, again, it's important to keep your leadership informed about how things are and what might happen. Right. I think the other thing about using what you have, I just read this yesterday morning, the parable of the talents. The ruler leaves town and leaves money with 3 different people. Hey, put this to work, and when I come back, and then I'll come back and we'll see how it is. So the person with 10 talents makes 10 more. The person with 5 makes 5 more. The person with 1 hides it, and they have that one thing taken away from them and given to the person with 10. Right. It's like this person can be responsible with more. You cannot be responsible for anything. Right. Because you weren't responsible for this little that you had. Good. And so I think, to me, that's so important to realize, this is what I have. Am I going to be a good steward of this? And then if I am, I will be, given responsibility for more.
No matter where you are in the spectrum or the size of church that you're at.
Yeah, exactly. You could be, 50 people meeting in a middle school band room, or you could be, at a mega church. Right. Are you responsible with what you've been entrusted with?
And you bring up a great point. I think that matters because you're building trust with your leadership.
For sure. Yeah.
And so when you do go to ask, it's not, he just wants the latest toy again.
Right.
It's not that. So maybe talk to that for a minute on choosing when to ask, being strategic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think in the book I talk about, if you're going to ask for money, make sure that whatever you're buying, that you're going to succeed at, that the things that it needs to do, it actually does. Because I think, asking for money is hard. Getting approval is difficult. And so you want to make sure you're succeeding, that whatever it is a win, a giant win. And I think, I don't think there's ever a bad time to ask. But again, if you're not responsible with what you already have. Like if feedback happens a lot, or the mic's not on when it's supposed to be, or the lights flicker, or, if there are all these little things that are happening, that speaks to how trustworthy are you. Has nothing to do with, buying new gear, but
Right.
it's like if the mic that we have now is never on at the right time, why should we buy a more expensive mic?
Right.
That will also not be on at the right time. And so, yeah, if you're not nailing the basics, if the foundation, the foundational parts of production aren't happening, yeah, don't even bother asking. Because someone's not going to trust you with the new thing. And so even if you look at, Willow Creek or Transformation Church or Elevation, some of these big churches that are doing amazing things with amazing gear, that gear didn't just show up one day. It was a function of trust. And it was also a function of taking some steps, using what you have. Let's take a little step towards something bigger. Let's take another step towards something bigger. I mean, if you look at Willow Creek in the first few years, it's, par 64s on a pipe, mounted to the floor, and, 3 small consoles chained together, and, with mix match mics. And, it's like God can still use that stuff.
Right.
But the people who were running it were good stewards of that. And so, okay, let's get matching mics. Let's move away from floor mounted par 64s. It's each little step is adding to it. So when you look at a place like Willow Creek, and they have, Yamaha PM10s around every corner, it feels like, for audio consoles, it's coming from a place of people were responsible with a little, and they were given more. And these are the tools that are necessary for doing the ministry that's now happening.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about maybe I want to get to a clean stage or a clean environment and why that matters. So talk to me about how the stage is such a public space that people see. Why is it important for our common spaces like that to be organized?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, there's a couple of reasons why things should be organized. So one of them is you have this band and your senior pastor and all these people are coming to use the stage or your platform or whatever you call it. And if it's a rat's nest of cabling and, they're having to step over stuff, I mean, it has a potential to take them out of the moment that they need to be in. And so if I can make it clean and neat and beautiful, I mean, I think of it like my living room. If I was having guests over, maybe I'll throw everything into a laundry basket and shove it in a closet, so we don't see it. But my goal is to have a nice, neat, comfortable environment when I'm inviting people over. And so, a lot of that, we're inviting people into our space. And so we want it to be beautiful, and for a guitar player to walk in, this is where you plug in. Here's your music stand. Here's your space to stand. It's like a nice, clean environment. We've, the cue sheets from 6 months ago, we threw those away. And I mean, I think it's real easy for stuff to collect. And I mean, it's like your house. a lot of things become invisible to you after a while. But I think it's really good to be in the habit of just saying, hey, at the end of every weekend, we just we make everything neat and tidy and throw things away and be ready for the next thing.
Right.
So, and I think especially when you're working with a lot of volunteers, to be able to say, hey, can you get another microphone out of this cabinet? And if they open the cabinet, it's just like a rat's nest and I can't even find this microphone, versus it's neat, it's tidy, it's organized, it's systematic, it makes sense to other people besides yourself. I think the minute it becomes just something that only you really know where things are, it's not a fun place to serve. So why would I want to be a volunteer in that kind of environment?
I think that's true for our production rooms as well as our the booths, the all of our spaces, that we, in a way, I'm in charge of my culture and environment if I'm the production lead. So I'm in charge of the spaces. So if my space needs a couch or needs to clean up whatever, that's my responsibility as kind of leading the charge of the culture. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, and I think the thing that's interesting too is that to clean up or to organize feels like it's something I don't have time for. I got to get ready for the next service, and so we'll deal with it later. But I think, and I'm like, as I'm saying this, I'm kind of talking to myself. If you were to look kind of over that way in this camera shot or over here, it's like, there's some stuff that needs to find a home. It's easier to I'll deal with it later. But especially when you're serving with teams, when it's not just you, I think being organized means a ton. And if you want people to have a great experience while serving, if it's just a pit, people don't necessarily want to serve in that. And so, cleaning up and organizing needs to be a part of our weekly rituals, I think.
So we talked a little bit earlier about excellence and perfection. And that I haven't heard that as much lately, but it used to be really a buzzword. I don't want perfection, I want excellence, that sort of thing. Tell me about that. What's the difference? What's the excellence versus perfection?
Yeah, I think perfection is impossible. I think perfection is something that cannot be attained. While excellence, doesn't matter the size of your church, the size of your budget, the size of your team, the capacity of your team, we can all achieve excellence, which is doing the best with what you have. If you only have SM58 microphones, do your best with them. That's all you can do. It also, in my mind, it means I'm better today than I was yesterday, which speaks to like I'm learning from mistakes and trying to get better. We were talking earlier about cutting corners. Okay, I learned that I shouldn't cut that corner. So now tomorrow I'm going to be more excellent than I was today.
Yeah.
And I think the mistakes happen, and we can only, for me, I look at excellence in terms of what am I going to learn from the mistakes that are happening and get better from them. That means I'm excellent. Perfection, there's too many variables outside my control to make perfection even something
attainable,
slightly attainable.
So I think you have a little bit different of an 80% 20% rule, but I had an 80-20 rule when it came to excellence versus perfection. And that I would tell my leadership, I can do about 80% accuracy on a worship experience with the team, unless we're hiring all pros, which then it's not going to be 100%, maybe 97, 98%. But still, if how we want to set our thing up is we use volunteers to execute our worship experience, I can get about 80% accuracy, which means I'm asking you for grace in the 20%. So when a slide is not in the right spot or whatever, trust me, I am going to do everything I can do to perfect those moments and to make sure that everything's in the right spot. But I'm asking you for grace in the 20%. And I'm asking you not to throw my team under the bus if you have the microphone. Can we agree to that? You want to talk at that some?
Yeah, I mean, I think just even your idea of having a conversation with your leadership to say, hey, this is what we can expect. We're going to do our best to do our best. And if a slide is late, we're going to talk about it. We're going to figure out what system can we put in place.
I probably know that happen before you do, Pastor, by the way.
Right. Maybe
not slamming, but like, I promise you, I see it. I know it.
Yeah. And so I think just setting expectations with your pastor, and then just even saying, well, if 80% accuracy isn't enough, let's talk about what could increase that. So you mentioned it could be hiring people. It could be, we need your message graphics a day sooner. Could mean we need, we could build a system around our volunteers to get to 90%. or we need to be okay with the 20%
Yeah.
variance. Like it might not be perfect. And I think
Great thoughts.
I like to believe that the leadership that I've worked with over the years, that they're reasonable people. And so we'll have a good conversation, and it might be that, okay, it needs to be 90%. So what do we need to, like, okay, that needs to be a staff position, or that volunteer position needs to only be somebody serving twice a month, not once a month, or whatever, it needs to be somebody that we can get a little more consistency from, or we need to not have that volunteer in that role again, or, whatever. Right. But I just love the idea of not just silently being okay with the 20%, but talking about it openly to say, hey, I'm seeing it just like you're seeing it. This is kind of the situation we're in. Maybe let's problem solve together on how, if it's not acceptable, how we can make it more like 90%.
Yeah. I think one piece that you talked about is maybe that volunteer needs to move to another position. I think sometimes that is true. I think that maybe, if mistakes keep happening, we need to lovingly move them to another ministry spot.
Right.
I think sometimes, though, there might be a conversation with our pastor of, hey, that's their first Sunday. So we are training them. We are, yes, we saw it, but that was a teachable moment for us. Sure. So, Pastor, I'm asking you, let's not knee jerk. That person never needs to be on Pro Presenter ever again.
Right. Yeah.
Let's hang on a second. So how have you had those discussions with your leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as you were talking, I was thinking it would even be a great idea to go to your pastor before the service. Hey, our best PowerPoint or Pro Presenter volunteer is here this weekend, and they're training somebody, and we want the new person sitting in the seat with our very best person with them. And so I just wanted you to know we have every confidence. They've rehearsed that, and that's happening this weekend. We just wanted you to know. Now, maybe that, depending on your pastor's personality, maybe that's too much information and that's going to throw them off their game. But there is something interesting about just kind of front loading. Hey, we're developing people and we've set this up, to be a success. We just want you to know about it. And maybe after this weekend, it would be great if you could send that person an email or a little note, or come into our video room and say, hey, I know this is your first weekend. You nailed it. Way to go.
Right. And the reverse of that, and I know we've said this 2 or 3 times, the reverse of that is true too. If you rip them to shreds from the stage, are they ever going to want to serve again?
Right.
If it's their first time, and how am I going to train another guy when they saw that happen to that person?
Yeah. Why would I want to do that?
Why would I want to do that if the pastor rips me to shreds from the stage?
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a church here in the Chicagoland area, a community Christian church, and they do this really cool thing where their whole worship teams volunteer, the people in the booth are volunteer, and they'll have somebody get up on stage and say, hey, I just want you to know that this is so-and-so's first time leading worship by themselves. And we're so excited for their part on our team, and we're really excited for today. And we just wanted you to know so that you could be for them and, cheer them on. And so let's like give it up for this person. And I mean, that changes the dynamic completely of even the congregation's expectations.
Yes.
To say, hey, this person's trying really hard and they're super nervous. So I'm going to do everything that we can to support them and help them feel supported, instead of like, this guy's singing off tune and, I don't really like this new person.
That might be the case.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Good. All right. A couple more things as we kind of wrap our time together. So let's talk about collaboration. We've hit on this some, but what are some ways that we can collaborate with our other counterparts, worship leader? You mentioned that, or tell me the importance of saying no and saying yes, creating good boundaries.
Right. Yeah. So collaboration is really key, because without the creative component, whether that's worship or, spoken word or something, a video idea, a story being told. Without that stuff, production, we got nothing to do. I mean, it's just an empty stage with nothing. And anymore, you really, especially in our COVID season, you can't really do church without technology. And so we have to collaborate. We have to coexist. And I think that, for whatever reason, God created the body of Christ for two very different groups of people to have to work side by side. And so I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have made everybody more like me. But for whatever reason, we have these kind of opposite personality types have to collaborate for it to work. Mm-hmm. And it really isn't just going to magically happen. And so we've talked about it a little bit in terms of like, I feel misunderstood and why won't somebody find out how I'm doing? Like, it's the same thing with collaboration, that we have to have a relationship in order to develop trust, in order to co-create together. And so it's not just about the idea. The ideas without the execution side of it, it's just an idea. And so I would say for me, when I was younger, I used to just kind of assume somebody's got this idea and you're just, kind of that it's crazy and it's going to be hard to do, but you're expecting me to do it anyway. But the reality is the creator or the person with the idea had no idea what they were asking or the ramifications of what they were asking. And so it was up to me to kind of say, okay, well, this is what it means. And this is kind of how it affects us. Let's brainstorm together. How can we actually do it? These are the people we have. This is the budget we have. This is the time we have. Let's figure out a solution together. I think when I was younger, we used to be, here's the idea. Okay, now I'm just going to go figure it out and be kind of angry about it because like I'm not home, very many hours because I'm working on this thing. That's crazy. But I never spoke up. And so it's important that just because somebody has an idea doesn't mean it needs to be done. And so let's talk about it together. And in the book, I talk a little bit about I had a boss that my goal was kind of getting him to say no to his own ideas. And it was, maybe it was the wrong way of thinking about it, but the idea was, okay, here's the idea. I'm going to come up with 3 kind of scenarios on how we can do that, and then let him decide.
Right.
Whereas I think I was always taking all the responsibility on myself to solve the problem.
I got to make it all happen.
Right. Instead of saying, hey, I love that idea. Here's what it means. Yeah. We have 3 days. We've already spent our entire Easter budget, and that just doesn't work with the lighting we have. So we could rent some more lights and that sort of thing. Let's figure this out.
Right. It's funny when you mention the dollar signs.
Yeah, right.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, if you talk about dollars or time or whatever, now it becomes, it was just an idea. Or let's talk about what is the nut of the idea? What's the kernel that we're trying to get across?
Yeah.
And maybe if we get down to that, now maybe we can figure out the method for how we're going to, execute that idea instead of saying, we could do this and that. And this is, the idea is wrapped up in execution. Okay, let's take all that. And so part of the here, we could spend more, we need more time or whatever. That conversation really starts to strip away all the layers that have been added to the idea to then get it to, here's what we want people to walk away with. Mm-hmm. Now, how can we do that with what we have?
Right.
With the time we have, with the people we have, with the gear we have.
That's a good point, because you might have an idea that's less expensive or come at it a different way that you can still accomplish what they're after. Yeah. In the time and budget that you have. And that's really
and I think ideas get better when there's a little resistance. Mm-hmm. So if you have an idea and we just like run with them all the way out, with no limits, I think it's not the best idea it could be.
Right.
But if you're like, okay, how could we do this differently? How could we do it? With the constraints we have.
Yep.
I think it makes every idea better. I mean, this is maybe a simple example, but I used to listen to a lot of Christian contemporary music, CCM, back in the late 80s, early 90s.
You're a Carmen fan. I see it.
It's written all over my face. And so there was a group, that I could not listen to because they started producing all their own music. So instead of having an outside producer come in and give them outside feedback and kind of help shape their ideas, they were producing their own music, and the songs were bad. They sounded bad. And so why would I listen to this? Yeah. And most of the music I liked was because there was an outside person kind of pushing back on, I think this could be better. I think we can make it better. And so I think the same applies just for our weekend services or Easter or Christmas, that, hey, let's take the idea, let's reduce it down to its essence and then build from there with what we have.
So there's one question I definitely wanted to make sure that I got in, and that is it okay to hold, I feel like I'm jumping here, but I'll just shoot you straight. Is it okay to hold volunteers to a standard? If I'm not paying somebody, can I hold them to, this is our expectation and standard?
Yeah, this is a great question and something that's been asked over for years and years. And I think absolutely you can hold your volunteers to a standard. I think that everybody wants to be a part of a winning team. Like, so if we put this in sports analogies, like I want to have fun, but if we're winning, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of a team that's cohesive and knows what they're about and is willing to put the time in and do something great. And so I think if you're not holding your volunteers to a standard, the high performers are going to see that and say, well, why am I showing up at 5 a.m. and putting the time in and working really hard? And this person's waltzing in at 7:30, but we're still letting them on the team. Or, this person keeps making the same mistakes over and over again. And, I want this to be better. And so why is no one talking to this person? And so a lot of it comes back to this idea of having values, having a mission statement that everybody knows about, that you're talking about all the time, so that when mistakes happen, you could say to a volunteer, hey, this is something we've talked about many times, that this is something we're about. And if you're not able to, be on time to rehearsal, then we need to, this might not be the best fit for you. But the challenge is, if we haven't had all those pre-conversations, or, hey, everybody, here are the expectations, it's a lot harder to have that conversation because you can't point back to something. And hard conversations are hard to have. And, a lot of tech people are, probably on the introverted side. But if you want to do excellent work, if you look at the Instagram feeds that are out there of people doing amazing work in the world of church production, they're holding their volunteers to a standard, and it's not for everyone. And that's okay. Another big thing. Yeah, it's okay that not everybody wants to perform at that level. But I think if you don't hold your team to a standard, you're going to be substandard results, and those new lights that you were hoping for, you're not going to get them because your team is not functioning at a high level. So
good. Well, man, thank you so much. I know I've taken a lot of your time today, and we've spanned this across 2 episodes, and I'm really excited because the content is so good, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
The book is fantastic. Tell us about FILO this year. What should we expect? Some of the speakers. Give me a taste.
So FILO, the FILO conference this year is May 11th and 12th. So we're doing kind of a hybrid event. We're doing we're having an in-person studio audience, so a limited number of people can come and be on site, and then the rest of it will be streamed virtually. So we have 10 breakout tracks that we're doing, 50 breakout classes. It's the whole goal is to create community with people. So if you're virtual, we have chat rooms where our sponsors are hosting like after parties online. If we're in person, we're just together. We're hoping to develop everybody's skills more. So we've got some great breakout teachers. So Chad Vegas from Transformation Church is there. We got a group from Elevation that's teaching some classes, Crossroads Church in Cincinnati, Central Church in Vegas, Thrive Production, which is Bayside Church in Sacramento, some Cross Point in Nashville. So we got people from all over who are doing the production work in the local church. So it's not just people that are talking in theory. They actually do this stuff like we do. And so they know how we use the equipment. We know how, what streaming our services mean. It's not just theory. It's like reality to them. So super excited about that. Our main sessions, excuse me, we have Cass Langton from Hillsong Creative. She leads the worldwide team for creative worship. So I've been kind of bugging her for years. And so she finally said yes. So I'm excited about her. And Carlos Whitaker is going to be there. Dr. Andrew Johnston, who has got some great stuff. Fired Up is his book, and he's going to be teaching from some of that. And then Justin Firesheets, who's at Church of the Highlands, which is a big multi-site church in Alabama, will be there with us. And so, I'm super excited about I remember when I was younger, even now, like the community aspect, you just can't beat being in a room or virtually in a room with people that understand your world and get you. And then just the chance to be inspired to, that what I do actually matters, and for people to be speaking to that. And I think there are conferences all over the place doing great things. The thing I love most about Philo is it's made specifically for tech people. They are the target audience. And so, we just hope that people feel seen and understood, and all the things you wish were happening at your church are happening at Philo, and then that can kind of help you make it through the next ministry season. And especially, after a year of COVID church, the production people have really risen to the challenge and have made the local church function. And so, we're just hoping that, this year we can, give people the pat on the back they need and deserve, and send them back out there to keep doing ministry.
Yeah, I want to encourage everybody again to register for it. May 11th and 12th in Chicago. Philo.org is the website, right, Todd?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Philo.org. Go get your tickets. It's going to be awesome. Well, Todd, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is fun.
Hey guys, I wanted to let you know about a brand new project that we're a part of. We have teamed up with NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters, to bring you a 10-class course called Church Media Masterclass. This course will give you practical training as a church tech and communicator, and feature incredible content from my friend Phil Cook, yours truly, Dan Darling from NRB, Stephen Brewster, Mark McDonald, Brad Weston from ProPresenter, Nate Anderson from Resi, Jeff Reed from Stadia Church Planning, Josh Brown from His Productions, our creative director, Sean Reese, and more. This is conference-level content for an extremely low price. I'm talking under $10 per class. Register for the Church Media Masterclass today at churchmediamasterclass.com. That's churchmediamasterclass.com.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Next week on the show, I welcome Joanna Lefleur. Joanna is the host of the Word Made Digital podcast. She's also a speaker, podcaster, TV host, and communications consultant. And I'm going to be talking with Joanna about church websites, specifically your website through the eyes of a first-time visitor. We're going to be talking through 10 things to consider when building your church website with guests in mind. Incredible tips from Joanna next week. Free articles, archives, and resources are all at 1230.media/training. It's all free, made possible by our sponsors on the podcast and blog. So feel free to check that out, 1230.media/training for all of that. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.